So this is the Drupal core cross initiatives meeting for August 23rd, 2018. And we have CMI and Migrate represented, and we already started talking about CMI roadmap. So we can continue with that.
Yes, so we had a call yesterday and we discussed other things, also a bit what we want to have on the roadmap. And it's largely what is already written here. So this configuration transformer or configuration storage transformer API is like, of course, the priority because it's kind of like the fundamental thing that will enable us to work with the other parts. So we want to get that in. And in addition to that, we want to have probably an experimental module that allows to deal with, in some capacity, with environment-specific configuration and environment-specific modules. But there, like, one of the things we need to do is to really draw lines and say, like, what is the scope of this? Because we don't want to just put config split into core, because config split has kind of like so many other kinds of uses, and so it's like the more we define what core does, the better, and then like we can delegate all the rest to contrib. And then for 8.8, we want to kind of do the same, but for sites that are not the same site. So like across different sites. So that would be distributions, or like this site factory, multi-site, whatever. The case where config management in core is currently not at all responsible for. And I don't know if for 8.8 we will get to like a real solution in core, or at least the framework sort of to be able to manage this, or the very least have like clear guidelines so that people don't like, so not every distribution does its own thing, essentially, which is currently what.
Yeah, that sounds great. I didn't mean to hijack the meeting talking about the 7 and 8 roadmap, or 8, 7, and 8 roadmap necessarily. We could also talk about like your current needs for 8.6, if there are any, because 8.6 is going to ship in like 10 days or something. So if there's anything urgent that you feel needs to be looked at for your initiative for 8.6, we should also talk about that.
Yeah, so for 8.6 as such, originally we said, okay, this installing from configuration, like there's like an asterisk, because we had to somehow exclude extra like complication. But I think I thought about it more, and I think it should probably be a bug, because someone will find this as a bug, which is you cannot install or reinstall from configuration a site that is started with the standard profile, because the standard profile has an install hook. And there's a non-trivial issues with profiles having install hooks and installing from configuration. And I don't know, there is some decision that needs to be taken on how we want to handle this from like other people than me. So I don't know. I guess this is more like framework, or I don't know who would be in charge for this.
From a core perspective, I think it would be a framework manager that would need to advise on this.
Yeah.
aren't any of those on this call right now, but we can certainly, ask the framework managers to look at this. I guess it would be easier to get them to look at it if the issue summary here for the recording, we're talking about issue 2982052, which is allow and install hook and profiles installing from configuration. It would help a lot if the issue summary had a proposed resolution. So the proposed resolution is we are no longer going to exclude, or the proposed resolution is TBD because we need answers to these specific questions, or like what, but like it would be great if within the issue summary, everything they needed to know was there so they could just read the issue summary and comments as opposed to like trying to understand the entire problem space.
Yeah, okay, so currently there's just 2 comments on the issue, and they're both from me, and one is from 2 months ago and one is from yesterday. And the one from 2 months ago lists kind of like the different solutions that I came up with or that I think could work. And so we just like, we need to define basically what or how Drupal wants to react in this situation, because up to now, up to 8.5, the install hook of a profile ever only ran when the site was installed the first time, and then never again. So this allowed for many ways of doing things. And I think if we just limit it to that and just only run it then, and don't do it on like configuration sync, then that would solve the problem. But I don't know.
I mean, if we're gonna dig in, I don't know if we want to dig into the details here, but like,
no, but like there needs to be someone that takes a decision on what are install hooks of profiles.
Yeah, like, I mean, in my mind, they're just to do customizations to the installer form and some various other things. But whatever it did during install should have already been done in the exported configuration.
Exactly. So they don't need to run again, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I'm not a framework manager, and like you should not take my word for anything.
No, yeah, but then I will upload. I will update the issue description with that, and like.
Yeah, I mean, again, not a framework manager. Last time I built a serious Drupal site was like last decade, so let's just be mindful of that. But the thing I was gonna say is like, of these possible solutions, some of them like. Running profiles, install hook, and a try catch block, that's definitely something we could still do in 8.6. But some of them, like deprecating install hooks altogether and implementing custom install scripts, like that's a new API. That would be an 8.7 only change that we can do. So that's the other thing to kind of bear in mind is if you are hoping to fix this for Drupal 8.6, whatever solution you come up with needs to be simple, and it needs to not change behavior on people in a dramatic way.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I'm happy to comment on the issue though with what I just said, if that's helpful. But
yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay, and then I think the action item for Gabor and I is to go ping some framework managers to take a look. But if you feel comfortable like proposing a proposed resolution on the issue summary, that would help as well, because then they have an idea of what they're giving a call on. So.
Okay. No, it's just I don't know which would be better, because the try catch thing it's really ugly. I mean.
Yeah, it seems like it would be ugly. Yeah.
So I would just remove it, but it's not really my call either. All right, that's it from our side. Yeah. The other parts we already mentioned they're in like the roadmap.
All right, Lucas, can we help you in some way? Did you look at the migrate roadmap in the product roadmap doc? Those are the 2 questions, I guess.
Help me in any way. I was hoping that one of our tickets would have been more ready just to make it into 8.6, but it got kicked back by Alex and will probably require a fair amount of effort to get it back into RTBC. We do have a lot of RTBC items that could go 8.6 or 8.7, and have had several for some time. None of them are particularly critical, or at least none of them feel particularly critical by just glancing at them. As far as the roadmap that we had, I think we added a couple more in Slack, and then I didn't get back into Slack and copy them out into your doc in time, and so I lost some additional items. But what we had in there as the base still seems fine. So, and it's probably more doable anyways. Yeah, I think as far as a roadmap, trying to get migrations a little more stable, it will be a good thing.
Are you shooting for my multilingual migration to be done for 8.7 or?
I would not. I would say more 8.8 personally. I just don't think we'll quite make it. It will get more and more stable, but we've probably got half a dozen issues that we know about that are open. So we'll get those resolved, and then we'll have more folks testing, and we'll probably find another half dozen, and probably get kind of down to the line with 8.7, and still, going in 8.8 would be my guess. I also don't feel like that's hugely critical to, like, we got to get adoption ASAP. We got to get this out of experimental as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the whole Drupal 8 project is going to die because there's no upgrade path, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I tend to be more cautious at this point.
Yeah, it depends, right? It's like if it affects you, then then you are fucked and you can't move off Drupal 7, or Drupal 6. But yeah, if it doesn't affect you, like if you want to 80% of sites roughly, that it doesn't affect it.
Right. And the sites that are going to be in that 20% are already going to be fairly complicated anyways. And the stability is really around an automated press a button. It's not around can you do it or not. We've still working on a kind of slowly, but still working on a case study that shows United World Wrestling that migrated a 4-language Drupal 7 site to Drupal 8 and did it with great success at the beginning of this past year.
Great. I mean, one question I'd have is, does Migrate still belong on this list as an initiative at this point? Or are you guys mostly thinking, like, let's just be working on it?
It does, because not all of Migrate is done. Okay. But it doesn't because it's pretty stable now.
Migrations, which I with, are not done. I mean, you got a handful of other features. You got CSV file support, rollback support, UI. But, like, the date time module has, open issues too, and we don't make that an initiative. So
in that case, then, yeah, take us off,
I don't know what the right answer is. It's still, like, I feel like it probably still belongs on there because it's so fundamental to adoption of Drupal. But
I think Edgy meant to do that as a get off some pressure, and instead of not. So I don't think she means to not respect the work.
Exactly. Yes. Sorry. I mean, so we don't have to be like breathing down your neck every quarter and be like, "Where's the stuff at?" You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I don't think. I think at this point we all personally don't feel as much pressure.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
At least I don't. I think the folks that focus more on the multilingual still feel like they've got a lot of pressure on themselves, but that's probably self-inflicted.
Okay. Is there an issue that, or a link to something for continue stabilizing the migration path that would be good to add?
There's the ideas one, and I keep updating that and putting links into other places, but it does have a link to the multilingual, and I put an update in there just recently saying multilingual is kind of our only big hurdle at this point, and linked off to the meta.
Is this stabilize the older Drupal to newer Drupal migration?
Yes.
273,505.
That is the issue.
And then rollback support in UI, is that still something you guys plan to do? Because I've kicked that forward every release since I've added it to the roadmap. So.
Technically, we could have pushed try to do that in 8.6, but chatting with Vicky, she didn't feel a huge rush to re-enable it. That's more of like a couple lines to just return on some functionality that was there before, but it kind of opens up a can of worms as well.
Yep.
Because now you're dealing with messy data. So I think we could do that at any point, or just sort of don't want to, and so as long as we can push that off.
Yeah.
But I think eventually we will turn it back on.
Okay.
In her mind, I think she wants to get some of the other components of the UI. So the big one with that is we want to provide a sort of a status table on the review page that shows green, yellow, and red modules. And the colors are sort of loosely associated with, there's an upgrade path for them. So if you don't have an upgrade path for your custom module, it would show up in the red. And then things that might be yellow would be maybe like multilingual translation things. An I18N module or such would be yellow because it might have some strings
but not all
available, but not all. And then green would be something very cut and dry, like the field module. We have a full upgrade path for bringing over all your field data.
Cool. So
right?
this would allow modules to declare their migration status?
Yes. It gets really tricky because we have N-to-N mappings, and we have 1-to-N and N-to-1. And so trying to represent a complex hash like that, or a mesh of data, we've been trying to figure out what we want to do to just keep it simple from a UX perspective. But once we figure out what we want to do, I don't feel like it's going to be that hard. And that's going to be more useful, we feel, to put our efforts into than having a way for folks to roll back.
Okay, great. So then, in summary, for 8.7, what I've got is I've kicked over CSV file support only because that's on Umami's roadmap.
And I think we still want to. Adam has had some feedback. We were initially considering just doing a straight grab from contrib. He wants to sort of clean up the API a little bit, which would make it non-backwards compatible. And so rather than essentially just rename and port and clean up the docs, we're now looking at sort of an API refactor. I mean, it's not going to be that much work, but there's 30 little items, nits type stuff that we'd need to address before that one becomes ready. Again. And then it'll probably get kicked back a second time.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's realistic to target 8.7 for it? Or
yeah, I think so. And it'd be nice to get in. And I think Onami would like it, but they also have something, so it's not really blocking them.
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. It's not blocking them, but it's like it's a strong, nice to have for them. I think it's a nice like product thing to be able to say. Like a lot of people go, "Ooh, CSV support, I could use that." You know what I mean? It would just be like,
yeah. And I think Adam wants to just make sure the API is a little more clean. We built it in Contrib when we didn't know what we were doing yet in Drupal 8 with migrations. It was like probably one of the first source modules outside of SQL, and we did things what seemed right to the developer and at the time, and we can make it a little cleaner now.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so CSV file support, the UI issue to allow modules to declare their migration status in migrate UI, and then just kind of a generic bucket holder for continue stabilizing the migration path that links over to that meta issue. Does that sound like your goals for 8.7 then?
Yeah. I wish I could find. I think I had it on there. It was one that I wanted to see, but I don't. There's an issue that feeds folks have pushed for. It's not something that even Migrate and Drupal 7 had, and it's a little complicated. But what feeds has in 7 and what they like to, I think they have it in 8 as well, is a feature to remove data if it's not in the source feed. So that would require a little bit of API adjustments. That way, if someone sort of connects to like an RSS feed or something and they want to mirror their site from this other site, and then delete nodes and create new nodes depending on the source data, they just have to set a config change to basically remove and update things to keep it in sync with the source feed.
That sounds a little dangerous for core.
It's not so much that core will do it, but it needs some API adjustments
to allow core. Oh, yes, fair. That's fine.
Yes, so that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, is there an issue for that one?
It's not so much that core will use it, but it's also one of those issues that Mike, myself, Adam, none of us really care too much about. But the community is following that issue, and there's like 30 or 40 folks, and they constantly are posting patches against it, and that just doesn't happen. People don't throw patches against things in migrate land unless they're really interested in it. So I'm kind of tracking that one as a Contrib really wants this, the community really wants this, core and other folks don't really care so much about it. So I think unless we list it as something we want to do in a roadmap like this, it might not ever get done, but there's a lot of interest to see it happen.
Yeah, well,
does that make sense?
It totally does. Adding it to the roadmap can give some visibility to it, so people who do want that feature know at least where to go to.
And I can find it here if you haven't found it yourself.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about on that one. That one's
I'll bring it up and send it over here. Okay.
And then I guess then for 8.8, I kicked over rollback support in UI, stabilize multilingual migrations, and then improve Contrib developer experience was a holdover from last time as well. So there's this issue, better support for D7 and D8 Contrib migrate, and there's a lot of not closed issues on that one. So that's 2906878. So I don't know if that should still be on this list or,
Which one was this one?
Yeah, this is, sorry, I'm trying to find my Hangout.
They just pasted the one for you.
Yeah, it's listed in Slack because I can find Slack. Better support for D7 and D8 and migrate. That was one of the ones on your 8.7 road.
Yeah. And I actually think we've seen some really good strides, and maybe we should even mention that in 8.6. Because things like field collections and paragraphs both saw huge strides forward. Multi-field WAMP picked up and has some patches out there. I think the top 20 or 30 using D.O's most popular modules have at least something now, or a huge percentage of them have something in their issue queue. So I feel like we've made, between January of this past year and today, in August, we've probably anecdotally, seen a 50% improvement or something.
Great. Would you be able to write a blurb to that effect and send it to Gabor, and he can add it to like the Drupal 8.6 announcement? Because that sounds definitely worth calling out.
Okay.
Unless Gabor, if you got all that, then that's awesome. Still have not found.
No, I don't think I could authentically write that, so it would be nice to have just a short sentence or something about that.
Yeah, just like a tweet. Okay, migrate support for deleting items. No longer got it. And so, to be clear, this issue is just that's just the API support. It doesn't add any core features to do that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, sweet. And that sounds good. Yeah, it's interesting. All of these issues that you're pointing out have like 50 followers, 70 followers. So it's like, oh yeah, people want this stuff. Have it surface there. Perfect. Great. Thanks a lot, Lucas. Sorry for taking so much of the call on that, but it's useful. Sure. Would you call this then like the roadmap, or should we pause and get sign off from the rest of the team on this before we make
You can, I mean, we've all got the emails, we've all seen it. You could send another reply out to everyone, say, hey, we discussed it. Anything else want to add? Vicky sometimes adds things, but with the time zone being New Zealand for her, she doesn't always make it on calls like this.
Yep, that's okay. And then that might be all we've got, because we picked up another person. Yeah, it looks like that. So
Yeah, we didn't have any.
Yeah, so I sent around the 8788 roadmap, like, I think a week before last, trying to see if we can get into some kind of shape for the core committer meeting last week. And that did not happen, which is fine. Like, that was kind of ambitious. But I've gotten a lot more 8788 stuff than last time, which is great. So I'm going to continue reaching out to teams about that, because our next core committer meeting is September 6th. Which is literally our last opportunity before Drupal gets on stage and talks to everyone about the Drupal 7 and 8.8 roadmap. So we better have sign off by then, or we're going to be in trouble. So I'm going to go annoy a bunch of people with a bunch of emails. And thank you too for showing up and giving me feedback. I really appreciate that. So that's fun. Yay. I don't know. Should we get our 21 minutes back?
I have a short question. What is the timeline for 8.7 features? Like, when do they have to be like?
Yeah, we don't have that yet. I don't know when the release managers are planning to get that info published, but roughly, we can go by whichever other. So roughly, Drupal 8.7 will ship in, say, March of 2019. You need to back up 2 months from then, which would be roughly January of 2019, would be code freeze, which realistically means like this period of the year is always an interesting one, because from about US Thanksgiving to Christmas, which is roughly a month of time between the end of November and the end of December, it is like everyone is on vacation or with family or other things, which is wonderful and lovely. But then everyone comes back and then they're like, oh crap, code freeze in like a week, and then there's like this scrambling. So my recommendation to teams would be to get your stuff done by mid-November to be on the safe side. But we should have till January, mid-January, something like that, by the calendar date.
Okay, that's a pretty good estimate, I guess.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, I guess the release managers are probably, you know, trying to get 8.6 out the door right now, but by the time 8.6 is released, we should have the public schedule for 8.7, I think. Or normally that would be the case anyway. So, but going by past releases, basically it's roughly March. We will work around, like if there was a DrupalCon, you know, in March, then we would do it in April or something to avoid like launching it during a big event. But otherwise it's roughly every 6 months. So the Drupal 8.8 is coming out the first week of September, or sorry, Drupal 8.6 is coming out the first week of September. So that would put 8.7 at roughly the first week of March, but give or take.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks for the information.
No problem. All right.
Gabor, I just threw something here into the Hangout before I forget. You can tweak what I said.
All right. Cool. I'll take that over to the front page post.
Yay. Thanks a lot for that, Lucas. That's great news. Okay. I got nothing else.
Nothing here either.
Adios.
Yeah,
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Day or evening. Bye.